To tell the story of Ukrainian immigration to East Central Alberta, the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village preserves and presents three different Eastern Byzantine Rite churches: St. Nicholas Russo-Greek Orthodox Church, St. Nicholas Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, and St. Vladimir's Ukrainian Greek Orthodox Church. All three of these churches are still consecrated, which means they are active and still used by the community in partnership with our museum. These three churches represent the three most common Eastern Byzantine churches present in East Central Alberta. Other Christian groups that were present were Romanian Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic, Lutheran, Anglican, and other Protestant. The Greek in the name speaks to the ancient origins of the traditions in these churches. In the eastern part of the late Roman Empire, the common and official language was Greek. The Christian tradition that developed there, over time, grew more and more distinct in language, practice, and theology from the Western, centered in Rome. After more time, starting in the 11th century, the Western and Eastern churches officially separated, called a schism. The Eastern churches are also called Byzantine Rite, because the capital of that part of the Roman Empire, the city of Constantinople, or modern Istanbul, was once called Byzantium. In the 10th century, the prince in the Principality of Kievan Rus, Prince Saint Volodymyr, in the territory that is now Ukraine, converted to Christianity and chose the Greek expression of the religion. It was this type of Christianity that then spread into what is now Ukraine, Russia, and other parts of Eastern Europe. The churches all represent different parts of the Eastern Byzantine Rite of Christianity. They're similar in many ways in which people attend and worship and how churches are built, but they do have different heads of the church. The Greek Catholic Church has the Pope as the head of the church. In contrast, there is no Orthodox Pope. There is no single head of the Orthodox Church or central governing organization. Different regions of the Orthodox Church have their own heads of the church in that region. These heads are typically called patriarchs. St. Nicholas Russo-Greek Orthodox Church was built in 1908 in the rural community called Kyiv, northeast of Vegreville. This church represents an early era of church building, as it was built relatively early on in the development of its local community. It was founded by a much smaller congregation than the other two churches in our museum. This church is log construction and sits on a foundation of field stones, much like the immigrants' early homes. A specially trained church craftsman was not involved with the planning or construction until the roof was being built. Inside, the layout is typically Ukrainian Byzantine. No pews except for a few benches on the side, 3 rooms, and an icon wall separating the large nave from the altar. Due to limitations of funds and skill, there is no open domed ceiling. The exterior dome is simply placed on the peak of the roof. Wallpaper and printed icons were used in place of an expensive church painter. St. Nicholas Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church was built in 1912 in Buchach, a rural community north of Innisfree. The layout is also typically Byzantine, with few seats, 3 rooms, and an icon wall, but it has more advanced construction. Designed by a church builder, it has timber frame construction, and though the dome is not open, the ceiling is arched to create the effect of a domed church. There are printed icons on the icon wall, but this community also hired a church painter, Peter Lipinski, to paint icons and the walls of this church. The walls follow a similar scheme to other Byzantine Rite churches in East Central Alberta, with brown or gray near the floor to represent the earth, green to represent plants above, and a blue ceiling to represent the heavens. Lipinski painted icons on canvas in a studio and then installed them into the church. He also used a weaving pattern to blend the canvases into the wall. St. Vladimir's Ukrainian Greek Orthodox Church is the most recently built, in 1934, in the town of Vegreville. Its later era of construction, larger congregation, and the resources available to the town community are reflected in the most elaborate construction among churches at the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village. The most notable feature is the large open dome over the central nave. This is also the largest of the 3 churches present at the museum. Other features that mark it as more elaborate is the greater use of painted icons and wall decoration, including stenciling. Church painter Vadim Dobralij was hired for this project. Features that make it distinct from other similar Byzantine Rite churches of its era are the lack of an icon wall and the addition of more seats for the congregation. Religion and spirituality was an important part of life for Ukrainians in east-central Alberta. Even before Orthodox or Catholic priests arrived in the region, the Ukrainian settlers gathered together in their homes to pray. Churches were among the first community structures built by Ukrainian settlers in this region, sometimes even before they were able to secure a priest to serve their congregation. By the 1920s, nearly every Ukrainian community in the region had their own church or churches. The Alberta-Ukraine Genealogical Project documented more than 130 church properties in our study area of east-central Alberta. Together, these 3 churches help us to tell the story of Ukrainian settlement in east-central Alberta by revealing the significance of religion and spirituality in the lives of the settlers.